When an arrogant rich kid publicly humiliated a single mother working as a waitress at a luxury restaurant, she thought she was going to lose her job and everything else. But a tiny technical detail along with her courage silenced the entire room and opened the door to a life-changing opportunity. If you were humiliated in front of hundreds of eyes, would you stay silent or stand up? If a single sentence could erase the dream you've nurtured for years, would you swallow your pride or fight back? Golden light from the 70th floor crystal chandelier spilled down, casting sharp reflections on pristine white tablecloths, transforming the room into something like an opulent theater. The rich aroma of truffle mingled with the aged scent of Bordeaux wine, an atmosphere tailored for the elite. Somewhere in the background, faint jazz notes drifted through the clinks of crystal glasses colliding like a cold, elegant dance. And there, in the middle of all that gilded grandeur, appeared Maria's worn black shoes. The leather was cracked soles worn thin. Each step creaked softly like a fracture in a perfect painting. Surrounded by flowing satin gowns, her black and white waitress uniform melted into the shadows. Only her eyes, tired but unyielding, refused to bow. She set down the tray. The $2,000 glass of red wine sparkled ruby under the light like frozen blood in crystal. Inside her apron pocket, Maria's worn notebook rested quietly, its corners frayed from countless nights sketching in a cramped apartment. Two worlds collided, separated only by a polished ebony table. Ethan Sterling, 26, sole heir to a powerful CEO, lounged in an Italian leather chair, a smug smile curling on his lips. He raised the wine glass, tilting his wrist just enough to flaunt his diamond-encrusted gold watch. The light bounced off it straight into Maria's face. "Single mom waitress," he sneered loud enough for the next table to hear. "You even know what kind of grape this wine is made from? Or just good at counting tips?" Laughter exploded from his entourage. Each chuckle sliced through the already suffocating air like scissors. Maria inhaled deeply, the scent of leather and strong alcohol burning her throat. Her fingers brushed the notebook in her apron where her dream still quietly clung to life. "Read the menu for us." Ethan leaned in, eyes sharp with predatory glee. "In Italian. Entertain us a bit. Or is that language too fancy for a single mom?" His words fell like a hammer. The room went still, only the faint clink of a spoon against porcelain remained. Maria stood frozen, heart-pounding breath caged in her chest like a trapped bird. A guest glanced at their watch, 8:15 p.m. 70 floors up, people dined on luxury. Down on the street, thousands packed into subways. The wealth gap wasn't measured in dollars, but in altitude and glass. Maria lifted her gaze. Her eyes locked on the glass of red wine still shimmering like coagulated blood on the table. For the second time, it struck her like an open wound. She heard him again. "Come on, make us laugh." Her hand clenched around the notebook. Then she took a small, deliberate step forward. Her voice rang out, not loud, not shaky, but cold and solid like steel. "Respect is not optional, sir." Silence fell. The jazz stopped as if the entire space had been sliced open. Maria stood tall, the chandelier's light catching in her eyes. In that instant, the distance between the 70th floor and a small Brooklyn apartment vanished. The $2,000 wine glass trembled, its ruby glow flickering across the table like an exclamation mark at the end of a challenge. On the 70th floor of a towering skyscraper, Manhattan stretched below like a massive circuit board glowing to life. Through thick, tempered glass, the lights of Fifth Avenue streaked red and white like the veins of a city that never sleeps. Neon from Times Square painted the clouds in streaks of pink and violet smearing across the night sky. Inside, the world felt different. Soft light from crystal chandeliers spilled over white-clothed tables, each beam refracted through hundreds of glass fragments, scattering into dancing flecks across crystal glasses. The sound was gentle glasses, clinking silver spoons, tapping porcelain, and the low hum of jazz, its contrabass pulsing like the heartbeat of a lavish, untouchable realm. The rich aroma of truffle floated from the open kitchen, mingling with browned butter, seared Wagyu beef, and the subtle scent of polished walnut furniture. The air was thick, luxurious, yet stifling. To the diners, it smelled of power. To Maria, it smelled like a bill 10 times her monthly rent in a crumbling Brooklyn apartment she shared with her daughter. She walked the aisle, carpeted in deep velvet blue. Her worn server shoes whispered faintly sounds only she could hear. The apron tied snugly at her waist, the stiff white shirt pressed so sharply it bit into her skin, made her feel trapped in a crisp, anonymous shell. In her hands, the silver tray dimly reflected her exhausted face, but the light in her eyes remained. Maria, 29, single mother, long shifts by day, sleepless nights writing a dream she once nearly held. 3 years ago, she sat in an architecture lecture hall drawing dreams in 0.5mm ink, imagining towers that reached the sky. Now the pencil was replaced by a serving tray. The dream folded into a worn notebook, always tucked into her apron pocket, silent but ever present even as she poured wine for strangers. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A message. Tuition balance overdue, $12,500. Maria bit her lip fingers, instinctively brushing the notebook. The symbol of a road left unfinished. A path that each step inside this restaurant seemed to pull her farther from. 9:00 p.m. sharp. Outside, the city still flickered. Inside, Ethan Sterling and his friends ordered another $2,000 bottle of red equivalent to a full month's supply of asthma medication for Maria's daughter. No need for words. The numbers spoke clearly enough. Maria took a deep breath. The sharp scent of newly opened wine cut through the air, burning at her throat. Her heart pounded, not from pressure, but from the image of her little girl waiting at home, the inhaler resting beside her rusted iron bed. Waitress. The voice sliced through the room from table 8, cold, sharp, deliberate. Just one word, but it landed like a blade. Maria turned crystal light, dancing in her eyes. Ethan hadn't said anything else, but his condescending smile said plenty. Her hand found the notebook again, the second time tonight. Same frayed cover, same ink-blotted pages, but this time it felt different, as if it was reminding her there is another Maria. One not invisible in this gilded restaurant, not just a shadow between tables. The camera fades out on a final image, a dinner table glowing gold, a glass of red wine sparkling like a jewel, and Maria's silhouette leaning forward to wipe away a single drop of water on the glass surface, while beneath her apron, the old swollen notebook pressed softly against her side. A glittering world above, a quiet dream just beneath. Maria stood quietly behind the thick velvet curtain, the chandelier light from the 70th floor casting a soft glow on her gaunt face. The silver tray weighed heavily in her hand, making her wrist tremble slightly, but she held it steady out of pure muscle memory carved into bone. On the table, red wine shimmered inside a baccarat crystal glass. Each ruby-hued drop slid slowly down the 3mm thick wall, one glass nearly worth a full month's rent for her cramped apartment. A subtle vibration in her apron pocket. Maria leaned slightly carefully, slipping out her phone. The screen lit up, reflecting in her eyes. Past due tuition balance, $12,500. Immediate action required. The message was dry, clinical, like a cold blade slicing through the suffocating gold-laced air of the restaurant. Her breath caught. The heady mix of truffle-bowled wine and designer perfume suddenly turned sour, unbearable. Her lungs tightened, her chest grew heavy. Fingers clenched the phone's edge, the screen trembling faintly in the dim light. Then a sound. A voice message. Her daughter's voice. Clear, stumbling, but enough to crack the mask Maria had worn all night. "Mom, don't forget the drawing we made you promised." It was barely audible, only for her ears. But Maria's heart erupted. In her mind's eye, it wasn't chandeliers she saw, but the peeling gray wall of their Brooklyn apartment, the wobbly wooden table, cheap A4 paper smudged with blue ink, childish doodles, a tiny house glowing windows, two stick figures holding hands. Maria closed her eyes. In that instant, the contrast hit like lightning. Above 70 stories of excess where wine was sipped and discarded without thought. Below, a crumbling apartment where a little girl waited, clinging to a picture like it was her unfinished dream. She slid the phone back into her pocket. Her hand almost instinctively touched the old sketchbook tucked inside her apron. The worn leather cover, the curled corners from sweat-stained fingers, it was still warm, like a fragment of her still pulsing with life. Inside, unfinished architectural sketches. Domes left hanging staircases with no end. Towers that lived only on yellowing pages. Years had passed, but the dream remained quietly trapped in fading paper. A burst of laughter from table 8 yanked her back. A cruel slice of the present. Ethan Sterling gestured wildly, his gold watch striking the table with a sharp clack. A blonde woman beside him laughed, diamond necklace catching the light. Maria inhaled sharply. Her chest ached. She adjusted the glass on the tray, hands damp with sweat. A salty streak rolled down her temple. She turned toward the floor-to-ceiling window. Manhattan blazed below a cubist painting of electric light. But to Maria, the brilliance felt distant, even merciless. She didn't see glory, she saw the gap. A world that separated her and her daughter by 70 floors of unbreakable glass. Her heart pounded erratic, unsteady. Her daughter's voice echoed again. "Mom, don't forget the drawing." Soft, but heavier than any bill. "Are you deaf, waitress?" The voice snapped through the air. Ethan again, cold, derisive. Maria flinched. The tray wobbled. The $2,000 wine glass slid, its ruby liquid sloshing like blood threatening to spill from crystal. She bowed low, steadied the tray, and placed it on the table, but her eyes flicked quickly to her apron pocket. The sketchbook was still there. Its second appearance tonight. A sign, a reminder there is still another Maria. The one who once drew cathedral arches, not just cleaned tables and poured wine. She straightened her back. The scent of perfume choked her throat, but deep in her chest, a whisper escaped her lips. Just for her. I can't fail her, not again. The camera cuts and lingers. On the old sketchbook, swelling gently beneath the apron fabric. A small detail, but carrying the weight of an unfinished dream. 9:27 p.m. The air inside the restaurant had grown thick with luxury. Crystal chandeliers poured golden light over linen-white tables, reflections dancing along the rims of cut crystal glasses. A bottle of 1998 Burgundy had just been opened, its rich, dark aroma mingling with the drifting scent of truffle from the open kitchen. Outside the glass walls, Manhattan stretched like a glowing maze, but at table 8, no one was admiring the view. Every eye was on the man lounging in an Italian leather chair, Ethan Sterling, 26. Tailored Tom Ford suit. A diamond-studded Patek Philippe watch slipping just beneath his cuff. The top button of his shirt undone, as if the very air in this space belonged to him. When he smiled, his teeth flashed under the chandelier's gleam, but his steel-gray eyes remained cold. It wasn't a smile to share. It was a smile to dominate. Maria set the silver tray down, her fingers trembling under the weight. The faint clink of glass rang out an alarm only she could hear. A single drop of wine swirled in the crystal glass, its ruby glow flickering back her weary reflection. "Well, well, if it isn't the single mom made." Ethan's voice rang out clear, loud, and deliberate. Meant to be heard, conversation halted. The jazz seemed to stumble mid-note. At nearby tables, eyes flicked over, then quickly away, as if silence could make them invisible. But at Ethan's table, 5 or 6 young elites in tuxedos and gowns, laughter exploded. Sharp, cruel, like hammers striking crystal. Maria inhaled, her chest tightening. The scent of rich wine and expensive perfume thickened the air, making it hard to breathe. Her calloused fingers dug into the tray's edge, leaving pale marks on her skin. Ethan leaned on one elbow, the chandelier's light catching the face of his watch. He narrowed his eyes, stretching each word like a sneer. Those hands, look at them. Rough, cracked, perfect for scrubbing floors, not serving wine. Laughter again. Someone tapped a silver spoon against a glass, mocking applause. "Tell us, maid." Another chimed in. How many dirty dishes did it take to rent that suit? Maria swallowed hard. Her throat burned dry. She could feel the weight of stares pressing on her, but no voice rose in her defense. The glass wall behind her reflected her shadow on the velvet carpet, small, distorted. A silhouette, unacknowledged. Her hand moved just slightly, touching the old sketchbook in her apron pocket. Worn leather, curled pages. A relic of a life left unfinished. A silent reminder. These hands once sketched arches, not just carried wine. Ethan leaned forward, fingers drumming on the polished ebony table. each tap like a lash. Come on, single mom maid. Smile for us. Show us you're useful for something. Maria didn't move. Her breath came fast, sharp. Her heart beat a wild thrum. The laughter grew louder, harsher, rising over the jazz. Crystal light still gilded the room, but around Maria it turned harsh, cold. She lifted her head. Her eyes locked with Ethan's, and in that instant, something changed. The laughter didn't stop, but it faltered. Not from silence, from the slow, steady appearance of defiance in her gaze. The $2,000 glass of red wine trembled in Ethan's hand, ruby light flickering violently. Below Maria's rough, shaking hand rested atop the frayed notebook in her pocket. Two worlds met, one made of gold, one made of paper. 9:41 p.m. The jazz in the background pulsed slow and smooth like the breath of opulence itself. But around table 8, the air had thickened into something cruel, a waiting laced with menace. Ethan Sterling leaned back in his Italian leather chair, one leg crossed, a $2,000 glass of red wine swirling in his hand, the other lazily tapping on an ivory-colored calfskin menu. "Tell us, single mom maid," he said, each word exaggerated like it was being chewed up before being spit out. "Read this, out loud, in Italian. Amuse us." Silence. Then laughter, sharp and hollow, scattered like shattered glass across the velvet carpet. A girl in a red silk gown lifted her phone camera ready. Another man tapped a silver spoon to his wine glass, counting down to the show. Maria stood still. The scent of nearby cognac stung her throat. The chandelier's golden light painted sharp lines across her face. Her hand trembled, but her eyes did not. Ethan slid the menu toward her. The sound of leather dragging on polished ebony cut through the room. Come on. Surely a maid can manage some fancy words. Maria reached out. Her calloused fingertips brushed the smooth leather cover, a clash of texture. One shaped by sweat and struggle, the other untouched by effort. She opened the menu. Thick, creamy pages whispered as they turned. Italian names spilled across the surface like black ink on parchment. Around her, murmurs rose. A silver-haired guest tilted his head, brows furrowing in something close to pity. A fellow server stood frozen behind a marble pillar, white-knuckled around a napkin. Maria inhaled. Shallow. Quick. Her heart thudded faster than the spoon's rhythmic clink. "Do it," Ethan pressed, his voice sharp as glass. "Or maybe you can't." Another wave of laughter burst through the room. Even the music seemed to shrink beneath the pressure, the weight of spectacle, of expectation. The imaginary camera zoomed in. First, Maria's lips gently pressed together, slightly trembling. Then her eyes, deep brown, clouded with exhaustion, yet lit by something stronger than fear. She began. Her voice was low, at first raspy, suffocated by the room, but the words in Italian rang true. Precise, clear, unexpected. "Tagliolini al tartufo bianco, filetto di branzino con salsa al limone." Laughter stopped. A pause. Then a few awkward whistles. Someone leaned forward, blinking, stunned. Maria kept reading, shoulders squared, voice firm. The Italian flowed, not memorized, but felt. Lived. Loved. Ethan froze. His jaw clenched. The smug smile wilted into discomfort. He muttered under his breath, "Impossible." Maria closed the menu. The sound was clean, final. She set it on the table with quiet precision. Her fingers brushed her apron. The old notebook was still there, still full, still breathing with dreams she once sketched in the very language she just spoke aloud. The restaurant fell silent. All eyes turned, some in awe, some in guilt. Maria lifted her chin. The crystal light shimmered in her gaze. She spoke softly, but it carried slicing through the tension. Language is respect. You can't fake it. The Italian menu lay open on the table. Golden light glinted off the bold text, "Filetto di branzino." The paper fluttered in the cool air conditioning. A living record of silence shattered. 9:56 p.m. On the 70th floor, the air hung suspended, thin electric. Outside, wind whispered against the tempered glass, merging with the low hum of air vents that cut sharp across the back of the neck. Maria inhaled deeply. The sense of luxury aged wine, white truffle, expensive French perfume converged into a sting at the bridge of her nose. Her heart pounded. But when she spoke, her voice cut clean through it all. Risotto allo zafferano. Tagliatelle ai funghi porcini. Each syllable rolled off her tongue like polished pearls, rounded, precise, resonant. No hesitation. No misstep. The words, rich with melody, fell into the room and stilled it. A sharp clink pierced the quiet. A guest's knife slipped from their hand, striking the rim of a $400 porcelain plate. The sound spread like a bell, waking something. Maria turned a page. Her fingers trembled but held firm. Chandelier light glinted across the menu's edge, casting the shadow of her worn hands, steady, defiant. Her chest rose and fell, breath quick, but every phrase she spoke sent another streak of light through the room. Filetto di branzino con salsa al limone. Ossobuco alla milanese. Ethan's table froze. The same group that had howled with laughter now sat stunned, silent, tight-lipped, as if this foreign music was peeling the mask off each of them. A girl in a red dress shifted away. Her chair creaked faintly. Even that sounded loud now. Ethan clenched his jaw. He leaned forward, trying to smirk, but the arrogance had drained from his eyes. The wine in his $2,000 glass quivered, casting shards of ruby light across the white tablecloth. Maria closed the menu. The sound of leather on wood landed like a final chord. She lowered her voice barely above a whisper, but somehow everyone heard. I studied in Florence. 2 years. Architecture. Italian was my second skin. A mental cutaway. Maria, age 21, standing in the sunlit halls of a university in Florence. A compass in hand. The bell of the Duomo ringing faintly in the distance. Then back to now. A single mother in an apron standing tall beneath chandeliers, surrounded by gold and silence. Her pulse slowed. The whole room held its breath. Somewhere, wine trickled from the neck of a silver bottle so slow you could hear each drop. Across the room, a guest turned to look, eyes wide, not with mockery, but with awe. Ethan tried to regain control. You memorized it. Some trick. Maria looked up. The crystal light caught in her gaze, clear, unwavering. Her words landed sharp. Fluency isn't a trick, it's lived. Her hand tightened around the frayed notebook in her apron. The same one filled with hundreds of sketches in Italian. Now quiet, but solid a witness. The imaginary camera panned from the closed menu to the trembling wine glass, and finally to Maria's hand, her finger resting gently on the worn leather cover. Golden light shimmered across the closed menu, the bold Italian words fluttering beneath the AC's whisper. No longer a setup for a joke, but a declaration of knowledge, of dignity, of power. 9:59 p.m. The 70th floor still blazed like a floating stage suspended in the Manhattan night. Through the tempered glass, the city below pulsed thousands of lit windows like veins glowing inside a body of steel. But inside the restaurant, the real heartbeat came from something else. Short, rapid breaths, pounding chests, a confrontation no one had anticipated, but now no one could ignore. Ethan Sterling shot up from his Italian leather chair. The screech of the chair leg dragging across velvet carpet sliced the air like a blade. His face was flushed, neck muscles taut, and his voice cracked like a slap. "You're just a waitress, don't act smart." The sound echoed, sharpened by shock. Silver cutlery clinked as if in recoil. Wine $2,000 worth sloshed over the crystal rim, staining the white tablecloth in deep crimson. A wound. Spilled arrogance. Maria stood her ground. Her hand gripped the old notebook in her apron pocket so tightly the worn cover creased under her rough fingertips. But she wasn't seeing Ethan. Not anymore. She saw the basement apartment in Brooklyn. Her daughter's unkempt bangs. Her bright, hopeful eyes, the voice message playing in her mind like a prayer. "Mom, don't forget the drawing we made." Chandelier light bore down, catching in her eyes. She looked up, her heart still racing, breath short, but her voice steady, clear. "Respect is not optional, sir." It wasn't loud, but it carved through the room, like a blade splitting gold from grit, privilege from principle. Whispers ceased. Guests stared, some pretending not to, but all ears tuned to the silence, to the weight of the moment. Even the HVAC's low hum felt like a shiver down the spine. Ethan laughed, or tried to. A jagged sound unfinished like glass cracking in a clenched fist. "You think a book makes you someone, that notebook?" He pointed at her apron. Doesn't erase the grease on your hands. Maria inhaled. Then slowly, deliberately, she pulled the notebook from her pocket. It was small, worn, edges frayed. She placed it on the pristine white tablecloth. A simple gray sketchbook, suddenly more commanding than all the silverware and satin in the room. Its first page flipped slightly, revealing the fine lines of a pencil sketch. A cathedral dome. Florence. The room froze. Still. So still that when a guest at a nearby table dropped their silver spoon, the faint ting rang like a church bell. Maria didn't move. She didn't bend down. She didn't break eye contact. She met Ethan's eyes directly, and in the gleam of the chandelier, her gaze flashed like tempered steel. Ethan swallowed, audibly. The sound was stark in the silence. Maria stood firm. This wasn't just about defending herself anymore. She was drawing a line. For her daughter. For every unseen, unheard voice like hers. Final frame. On the table, a wine stain spreads deep and red like the residue of power cracked open. Next to it, an open sketchbook. Graphite lines delicate and deliberate arc across the page. One side, the splatter of excess. The other, the unfinished curve of a dream. 10:07 p.m. The air on the 70th floor had thickened, congealed into something tense and silent. The echo of earlier laughter had evaporated from the crystal ceiling. Under the soft gold glow of the chandeliers, only two sounds remained: the racing heartbeat in Maria's chest and the slow drip of wine from a silver bottle. A soft click. A man at the next table tilted his sleek iPhone, silently recording. Older. Composed. He wore a deep navy suit, a silver gray tie, and an aged Patek Philippe watch. Until now, he had been invisible, just another calm figure among the chaos. But his eyes, cool and focused, now gleamed like they'd found something worth preserving. He stopped recording, looked up, and spoke, his voice gravelly, firm, and unmistakably Italian. Qual è la differenza tra un arco a tutto sesto e un arco a sesto acuto? What's the difference between a semicircular arch and a pointed Gothic arch? The question hung in the air like a blade. Ethan furrowed his brows, confused. His friends exchanged blank stares, but Maria's eyes lit up like lightning through a storm. She answered instantly, no hesitation. L'arco a tutto sesto è romano basato su un semicerchio perfetto. L'arco a sesto acuto appartiene al gotico più slanciato, più leggero, distribuisce meglio i carichi verticali. The semicircular arch is Roman, based on a perfect half circle. The pointed arch is Gothic, taller, lighter, better at distributing vertical loads. The words flowed fluent, strong, lived in. The room shifted. Soft gasps. Whispers in multiple languages. Faces turning from doubt to awe. The older man smiled, nodded. A judge satisfied by the truth. He set down his phone and now in English declared, perfect Italian, not rehearsed, lived. Ethan paled. She's bluffing, he blurted, voice cracking, but no one was listening to him anymore. Every eye in the room turned to Maria, still standing, still holding the old sketchbook close to her chest, still breathing hard, but now with purpose. She wasn't performing. She was remembering. Becoming. The young woman once seated in a sunlit lecture hall in Florence, smelling stone dust, sketching domes, touching centuries-old columns. The older man placed a firm hand on the table. His ring tapped once against the wood clack. Then he turned to Ethan, voice ice cold. Your arrogance just exposed her brilliance. A long silence followed. Ethan opened his mouth, then shut it. Nothing came out. Above them, the chandelier light flickered across the phone's screen. Still recording. Still capturing Maria's voice, reading in flawless Italian, a record. Undeniable. The frame freezes. One side, Maria's old notebook clutched to her chest. The other, the glowing screen of a phone playing back the truth. Two artifacts, one of memory, one of proof, both unshakable. 10:19 p.m. The golden light from the chandeliers spilled over the rim of untouched red wine, $2,000 a bottle still glistening in Baccarat glasses. The 70th floor was suspended in a vacuum of silence. Every breath in the room felt heavy, deliberate. At the center of it all, Ethan Sterling stood, hands trembling, his crisp white collar soaked in sweat. The older man leaned back slightly in his chair, eyes locked coldly on the young man across the table. Then, 3 sharp taps. His fingers struck the table like a gavel. Knock, knock, knock. Not sound, verdict. Then with a voice low and unyielding, he spoke, cutting through the tension like a blade. You had eyes, but you didn't see gold. No one moved. No one dared breathe too loudly. Eyes shifted first toward Maria, then toward the man who had just shattered the illusion of the room. He didn't look at them. He simply raised his phone. The screen glowed softly in his hand, its light reflecting off the worn cover of Maria's notebook still pressed gently against her chest. An invisible thread tied the two, proof of the past, evidence of the present. He dialed, lifted the phone to his ear. His voice was quiet, commanding. Arthur, he said. You need to hear this. A hush fell deeper. Utensils paused mid-air. The jazz faded into a ghost of itself. Ethan blinked rapidly. His lips cracked. He swallowed loud enough for the room to hear. On speaker, a voice came through, deep, familiar, and unmistakably powerful. What happened this time, Ethan? The older man didn't give him a chance to answer. He did it for him. Every detail, every insult, every moment of humiliation. He recounted how Ethan called Maria a single mom maid, how his friends laughed, how he mocked her, forced her to read Italian like a circus act, and how she unexpectedly, unforgettably answered with flawless command. No embellishment, no drama, just the truth, spoken plainly. He wasn't delivering gossip. He was delivering testimony. Ethan lunged forward, whispering hoarsely, Please, Dad, don't. You don't understand. Too late. The voice on the phone dropped like a blade. Ethan, you shame me in public. The words cracked like thunder. Glasses rattled. A young server flinched and dropped a cloth napkin in the corner. Ethan staggered, grabbing the arms of his leather chair to steady himself. He looked pale, ghost white. The voice on the phone did not lower. I built this company brick by brick. And you, my son, humiliate a woman who works harder than you ever will. You disgrace our name. Ethan opened his mouth, but the words didn't come, only shallow, gasping breaths. Red flushed across his face, then drained completely. He looked like a man drowning under invisible water. Maria didn't move, didn't flinch. The golden light touched the neat bun in her hair. In her hands, the sketchbook loosened slightly, just enough to reveal a new drawing, another dome. Florence again. Precise. Dreamed. Still alive. Beside her, the phone's screen remained lit, capturing it all. Ethan's face under the chandelier, pale, exposed. Maria's sketchbook opened steady. On one side, pride unraveling. On the other, a single clean curve, quiet, humble, indestructible. 10:31 p.m. The thick glass doors of the 70th floor dining room swung open. A gust of cold night air swept in, sharp, sobering. With it came the steady footsteps of Arthur Sterling, the man who built an empire brick by brick. He stood tall, commanding, in a charcoal suit that hugged his frame with understated precision. His eyes, steel blue, unreadable, swept across the room, now frozen in anticipation. Every click of his leather shoes against the marble floor echoed like judgment. Ethan sat frozen, his back pressed hard into the chair, sweat glistening at his temple. Maria held still, her fingers clenched around the frayed sketchbook at her chest. The room smelled of red wine, truffle, and tension. Arthur didn't look at his son. He stopped directly in front of Maria. And when he spoke, his voice was quiet, but each word landed like a cut through velvet silence. Miss Ramirez, tonight you were humiliated in my name, and I owe you an apology. A ripple spread. Murmurs. Chairs shifted. Some hands trembled, crystal glasses chimed softly in response. Maria lifted her gaze, the chandelier light glinting in eyes wide with disbelief. Arthur gave a small nod, then continued. You showed more integrity in 5 minutes than my son has in 26 years. He reached into his leather briefcase. Not for a check, not for cash, but a metal card engraved with the Sterling Design logo, sleek, precise. He placed it on the table, right next to the $2,000 glass of wine. A symbol now replaced. Tomorrow morning, Arthur said, a desk waits for you at Sterling Design. Assistant designer, fair salary, full benefits, a future you've earned. Maria gasped. Just once. In her mind, the voice of her daughter echoed like a bell. Mom, don't forget the drawing we made. That drawing, still tucked between pages of her old notebook, was no longer just a memory. It had become a passport. Arthur met her eyes again. This time he leaned in slightly, voice lower but still deliberate, clear to all. There is one condition. He turned his gaze to Ethan, slumped pale, avoiding eye contact. Help me bridge this distance. Between a father and his son. Don't just build designs. Help rebuild him. The words lingered heavier than any contract. Maria swallowed. Her lips parted, trembling, then steadied. Respect is not optional, sir, for anyone. Arthur paused, then smiled. Not a smug smile, but one touched with exhaustion and hope. He extended his hand. Maria hesitated, then slowly, gently set down her notebook. Her hand, now free, met his. A firm grip, warm. One handshake, not of transaction, but transformation. Final shot. The camera lowers, zooms in. On the old sketchbook, creased, soft-edged, resting beside a glimmering wine glass. Worn dreams and gilded opulence side by side on the same table. A new chapter had begun. 6 months later, 9:00 a.m., Sterling Tower, 72nd floor. No clinking silverware. No laughter over crystal. Only the soft hum of a projector warming up the echo of heels tapping against dark wood and the quickened breath of shareholders lining a 40-foot obsidian table. Maria stands at the head of the room. No apron, no tray, just a small, cold aluminum clicker in her hand. Her brown hair is pulled back neatly. Her tailored gray blazer fits perfectly. Polished black heels catch the LED spotlight from above. Behind her, the giant screen glows to life. A 3D rendering of a community center steel framework, glass walls, a solar-paneled roof shaped like overlapping fish scales. The scent of $18 Arabica coffee floats through the room, blending with the newly buffed veneer. Outside the tempered glass, Manhattan stretches wide, the morning mist still clinging to its skyline. Maria raises her chin, her voice calm, resonant, unwavering. This isn't just a building. It's a place where kids can learn, read, and believe they belong in this city. A beat of silence. Then the next slide. A child's reading room. Glass walls overlooking a garden. Pale wood furniture bathed in natural light. One older board member clears his throat, then nods. Another lowers his Mont Blanc pen. Doubt begins to dissolve into quiet attention. Maria clicks again. Next slide, cost breakdown. She speaks faster now. Short sentences, sharp impact. 20% energy savings. 35% reduction in operational cost. Material lifespan over 50 years. The undercurrent of resistance weakens. Some start taking notes. The same men and women who once saw her as an outsider, now writing down her words. Then the payoff. Maria sets the clicker down. She pulls out her old frayed notebook. Not to take orders, not to plead. She opens it to that page. The very first sketch. A tiny awning, a few shaky windows, and in the corner a penciled message. For us. She places it beside the full-color, multi-million-dollar blueprint the dream made real. Silence cracks. Applause rises. First one, then another, until the room echoes with it. Maria stands tall, pulse racing, heat flushing under her skin. But she's not trembling. She's here. As the meeting concludes, she gathers her materials. The doors open, and a small voice calls out. Mom. Her daughter runs in. Tiny sneakers tapping joyfully across the floor. Maria kneels. Small arms wrap around her neck. The girl whispers just for them. You did it, Mom. Maria holds her close eyes shining under boardroom lights. In her other hand, she gently squeezes the notebook, no longer shaking, no longer carrying debt. Only the weight of a promise fulfilled. Final frame. A close-up of the frayed notebook now resting on the glossy boardroom table. A scarred, humble artifact set against the polished sheen of corporate power. A quiet metal, and it gleams. Night falls over Manhattan. The sky, black as ink, is lit not by stars, but by 1,000 glowing windows, an artificial galaxy stitched across steel and glass. From the 72nd floor, Maria stands with her forehead inches from the cold surface of the tempered glass. Her breath leaves a faint mist, slowly fading. Her heart still pounds, but not from fear, from the echo of triumph. In her hand, she clutches the same worn notebook. Her fingers glide along the cracked leather spine, rubbed raw by years of turning, sketching, hoping. The scent of old paper lingers, mixing with the faint aroma of $18 coffee left behind on the polished boardroom table, an oddly fitting blend, simple yet undeniably refined. Outside, the distant whine of traffic crawls up from the avenue below. Inside, only breath hers and her daughter's, quick, at first, then slowing. As if the city itself were holding still, listening. Maria bends down her smile, weary but luminous. In the reflection on the glass, two versions of herself appear, a single mother, a newly minted architect. A voiceover breaks in, low, steady, a heartbeat in words. Courage can change your fate more than money ever will. The golden boardroom lights dim, giving way to the cool teal glow of the Manhattan skyline. Wealth and poverty, height and depth, debt and freedom rewritten in seconds. Maria tightens her grip on the notebook. Once a symbol of unfinished dreams, now evidence of dreams made real. She closes her eyes. Next to her, the sound of her daughter's laughter rises clear and warm, drowning out the noise of a city too busy to care. And in that light where glass and ambition meet, her smile becomes something cinematic, like it was always part of the script. Then a question, spoken like a challenge thrown into the void. Would you speak the truth when you're treated like nothing? A pause. Then another cut. A voice sharp and resolute like a bell rung through midnight. Do you believe courage can change your life? Share. Subscribe. Final shot. A close-up of the frayed notebook resting on the windowsill. Behind it, the skyline glows. Its battered cover reflects more light than the surrounding towers of steel. A small, ordinary thing, but it shines. Final cut. Black screen.